Hey folks, welcome to the western side of this Stanley Cup playoffs pulse check, part one, as we talk about each series after a couple or three games into round one. I recently just did a Eastern Conference video, which if I haven't linked already, I will now, in the corner there if you'd like to see that. But I'm sure you can find it on your own too if you miss it. Now, anyways, talking about the West, we'll start in the order the NHL site gives us. I got stats on my phone, but this is more about kind of a feelings thing, which I don't usually do with videos, but we will here. So for Dallas and Vegas, I didn't want coming into the series. I didn't want to underestimate Vegas, even as a Vegas fan, or fan of Vegas, I should say, because I'm an Oilers fan, but I'm a fan of Vegas. If that makes sense. If it doesn't, that's fine. But my point is, coming into the series, as much as I loved and respected the Golden Knights and the roster, it just felt like they kind of were stumbling into the playoffs, and if they were given the opportunity to get everything together, then sure they'll win. But the chances of that happening against the Dallas Stars, I just felt that was low. So I, like many other people, chose Dallas Stars to beat the Vegas Golden Knights. But we all forgot about one thing. Pete DeBoer, the head coach for the Dallas Stars, once again adds to his long resume of having overwhelming success in the regular season and incredibly underwhelming success in the postseason. Obviously, things can change. The Stars aren't eliminated yet, but the two wins by the Golden Knights were convincing. Jake Ottinger didn't seem too good, but he didn't seem too bad either. It just felt like Vegas was the better team in both cases. Let's bring up the stats for Game 1, where, as you can see, Vegas beat the Stars 4-3. Oh, that's the wrong site. Okay. There, it's on my phone. That is struggling to charge. Anyways, it was Logan Thompson, Jake Ottinger. Never mind, Ottinger did have a bad night here. He allowed 4 goals on 15 shots. A lot of it came in the first period, lots of scoring in the first period, where that ended 3-2 for Vegas, and then each team had a goal after that. Dallas did actually outshoot Vegas quite well. They limited Vegas to only 15 shots in the game, but doesn't really matter when Ottinger is allowing 4 in those and Logan Thompson's allowing only 3. So Vegas was able to pull out the game there, and then fast forward to 2 nights later, it's like, okay, well, Dallas, we outplayed Vegas. This time we'll beat them. And this time, Vegas, in terms of shots, outplayed Dallas, outshooting them by 5, 26-21, and won 3-1, including a goal from Noah Hannafin. I'm sure everyone is really excited about their LTIR movements and stuff, because I got a real kick out of Mark Stone scoring the first goal for Vegas. I thought that was hilarious, mainly because most people did not. But I thought that was funny. But both teams are hitting, both teams are getting shots. It just seems to come down to Vegas's talent executing, making the most of their opportunities, and some nice plays by Jack Eichel, and a goaltending thing too. And I love Jake Ottinger, but he has not had a good season. And even though he was coming into the playoffs hot, which is what led me to choose Dallas, he has not carried that momentum whatsoever. That momentum died pretty quickly in Game 1 and has not been recovered. It is going to be up to Ottinger to make sure Dallas wins this. It's not all on Ottinger, but I think to most people, including myself, that is the primary contributor to Vegas's success, is that Logan Thompson has outplayed Jake Ottinger. And while Ottinger was okay in Game 2, the Game 1 performance was really bad. And Dallas is full of talent. Like, they can win without a good game from Ottinger. But these are the Vegas Golden Knights. These are still wild card or not, they are still the Stanley Cup defending champions and probably a better team than when they won the Cup. And they are very well coached by Bruce Cassidy, who has a long history of playoff success. Pete DeBoer does not. So that at this point, I think a lot of people are kind of convinced that if Dallas wins the series, they still can. They're not as strong as a lot of people anticipated. And if Vegas wins the series, well, Vegas is back. and I did say at the beginning of the year, not on this channel, I'll bring up the receipts at the end of the year, that Vegas is the safest pick to win the Stanley Cup. But I still didn't choose them. The team I chose is my favorite. And it's not because of bias, but it's a whole different video. We're just talking about the feelings and where we're at 2 games in. Unlike the East, the West has had each of their series only play 2 games, and all of them, besides the one we just covered, are split. Now, Winnipeg and Colorado, the very fair expectation was this will come down to goaltending. It's going to be, we know Hellebuck's going to be great, but is Georgiev going to be good? Well, what we should have said is, we know Georgiev isn't going to be good. Will Hellebuck? Because Georgiev has not been good. He has not been good by any means. He only allowed 2 this last game too. Maybe I should pull up his stats before I really keep saying he hasn't been good. Because he was in game 1. I'll tell you that. Okay, 28 for 30 is pretty good, actually, for Georgiev. But the game before, 16 for 23. Not okay. But despite allowing 6 goals in that game, Connor Hellebuck, that was his best game because he made 40 saves. The game after, he is outplayed by Alexander Georgiev. And Georgiev is a capable goalie. He is a talented goalie. He just has not been consistent at all this year. Or Hellebuck has. But Hellebuck has not shown consistency right now. And even though I like the Avs, it's also kind of annoying in that I've seen what Hellebuck can do in the playoffs. He did it to my team. Why won't he do it to Colorado? Come on. Mike Smith was better than Alexander Georgiev going into that series. Why is this happening? This is not fair. It is fair, but you know what I mean. So, I think Winnipeg will win the series if Hellebuck gets back into form. It's going to be hard because it's not like they're playing a team with average or above average scoring. They're playing the Colorado Avalanche, who have Nathan MacKinnon, one of the best scorers in the league, who as a team have been one of the best scoring teams in the league. Not to mention Mikko Rantanen, Nichushkin, and Cale Makar, among others. Like, the Avs are still a very good team. But those are my thoughts. I don't have any strong feelings on who's going to win the series. My feelings are starting to more progressively move to the Avs, not because they won the most recent game, but because my confidence in Hellebuck is pretty low. But Hellebuck, as an elite goalie, can recover his form pretty quickly. But like I said, it's really hard to recover form against a team that has what Colorado has. Next, the other split series besides the last one is Nashville and Vancouver. This one once again comes down to goaltending, in that Vancouver had Thatcher Demko and no longer has Thatcher Demko. Casey DeSmith has been admirable this year as a backup, but he is not UC Saros. Now let's start with Game 1. Game 1 was a good win by Vancouver. It was a very emotional win for Vancouver because of the home crowd, which was something that was very much noted by the Canucks, as were other Canadian teams who won in their building, where we will wait on Toronto. But Edmonton had a great crowd in their Game 1 win. Winnipeg did, and so did Vancouver. My app restarted. But anyways, here we are. So Vancouver won 4-2. In terms of goaltending, Thatcher Demko had a decent game, 22 for 24 is a very good number. UC Saros was not. UC Saros did not look like UC Saros. He was shaky. He allowed 17. He didn't allow 17. He saved 17 of the 20 shots. And Dakota Joshua scored the second goal of the game with the empty netter, making it 4-2 in an otherwise pretty even game. Hitting was in Vancouver's favor. Shots were slightly in favor of Nashville, but mostly even. It just came down to goaltending, which it did again too, but went the other way because Casey DeSmith, again, he's been admirable, is not Thatcher Demko. And that Casey DeSmith did not have a good game, even by really any standards, any NHL standards. He allowed 3 goals on only 15 shots. Nashville didn't get a lot of, there wasn't a lot of shots either way, but that's because Nashville had 31 block shots. Nashville kind of was like, okay, UC Saros isn't ready yet. Let's make sure Vancouver can't get close to him. And so Nashville had 31 block shots, a number that's been well repeated. Neither team hit 20 shots, which is crazy in this era. That's low by 90s standards, by dead puck era standards. That's low. That's very low. That's a combined 34 shots. Most games in the playoffs, a single team won 34 shots. There was only 34 shots on goal during this game. And that favored Nashville because once they had a goal, they knew, okay, we'll just block everything else. And then they had 3 goals by the halfway point of the second period. It's 3-0 Nashville. And they said, okay, all we have to do is block all the shots, which they did. Andrew Burnett, their coach, said, we embrace the pain, which I think is interesting when Sheldon Keefe in Toronto's finding no excuses. And Keefe is a very smart coach. I just, if I was a Toronto fan, I'd be very frustrated with him finding new excuses, whereas Andrew Burnett is like, we embrace the pain. And it absolutely led to a win. Vancouver did get a goal from Nikita Zadorov, but it wasn't enough. Saros had a good game, but he didn't need to do much. He only had to save 17 of the 18, whereas DeSmith allowed 12 of 15. So the question becomes, can Vancouver win with Casey DeSmith? Yep. Especially if they're playing the Oilers, because Casey DeSmith turns into the greatest goalie of all time when he plays the Oilers. I don't know why, and why it's only this year. I don't get it. But anyways, they're playing Nashville Predators, not the Edmonton Oilers, who are a very different team in how they play and yada yada, where they're from, whatever. But DeSmith is a capable goalie, but he is a backup, and UC Saros is a guy who's been incredible for the last few years, but that heavy workload has taken a toll on UC Saros. So it is questionable if Nashville can go far because of how leaky Saros has looked, especially if they play the Oilers in the next round. I think if they play the Kings in the next round, Nashville wins that one, probably. You never know, obviously. I think Kings will keep it close, but I'm getting ahead of myself right now. For Nashville, it's do what you did. Kind of protect Saros, but the way Vancouver, the stars that they have, they can break those systems and can score, and they'll react to this. So I don't think it's smooth sailing by any means, and blocking a ton of shots isn't smooth sailing by any means, but I'd be surprised if Nashville wins the next 3. I think Vancouver will get a 1 or 2 more, but I do feel like Demko's injury, like I was already thinking Nashville would pull off an upset, but with Demko's injury, it just seems all that more likely. But I am aware of what DeSmith can do, because he did it twice against the Oilers. I don't know why. Now, speaking of the Oilers, people can laugh all they want at the Kings winning a game, but the fact is it's very hard to sweep somebody in a series, especially when you've played them 3 times in a row. As everyone knows, this is the 3rd time that the Oilers have played the Kings in the first round of the playoffs. The Oilers have won the last 2 rounds, but the Kings do know how to beat the Oilers. As I said in the last game review, if you'd like, and again, if you'd like deeper reviews, I do a deep review for each Oilers game. So I will link that playlist, but I'm just kind of going to go cover over it as a whole. And I don't even need to look at the stats because I watched both games intently. Where was I? Yeah. So even though the Oilers are used to beating the Kings, when you play a team as much as you have, as the Kings have played the Oilers, you do learn how to beat them. And the Kings do know how to beat the Oilers. It's just the Oilers know how to beat the Kings as well. and better, and the Oilers are more talented, is where it's at. Let's do goaltending next. Yeah, and then we'll talk special teams, and then we'll talk my feelings. So goaltending, obviously, everyone's pointing the finger at Skinner. The game last night was very underwhelming by Skinner's standards, any goalie standards. I was vocally disappointed by it, and I say that as a fan of Skinner. I'm not a hater at any means. I love him, and oh man, I'm his biggest supporter on his days. But I can't, just because I'm a big fan of him doesn't mean I can turn a blind eye to game two. It definitely did become a difference maker when Talbot was able to come up with a few big. Talbot wasn't really having a good game either, but he did make a couple big saves. Skinner did not. Skinner was not making big saves. He didn't really allow any really ugly goals, but he wasn't giving the Oilers any reason to expect him to make a few extra saves, which, as unfair as it is the expectations of a goalie. And Skinner wasn't doing that. So I think it didn't come down to Skinner. There was more the Oilers could have done as a team outside of Skinner, but Skinner needed to be better. And I think if Skinner was his normal self, we would have won that game, and it would have been 2-0 going to California. But it is 1-1 because Skinner wasn't. Now, in terms of the can Kings pull off the series win, of course they can. It's the NHL playoffs. When you lose to a team enough, you're bound to win, is one way of putting it, which is why I didn't want to play the Kings. But the Oilers should still win. They are the better team. They outplayed Kings in the first game by a long shot. The last two goals the Kings kind of scored in garbage time and were kind of fluky, and they outplayed the Kings in a lot of ways last night as well in their 5-4 loss in overtime. It was just a matter of Skinner being very, very pedestrian, like old lady crossing the street with a walker pedestrian kind of thing. So at least he was moving. He did make 21 saves, I think. The last I checked, unless they updated the shots, because it does happen. But he wasn't doing anything else. If the Kings had a good shot on goal, we couldn't expect Skinner to save it, which is unfortunate because he is capable of that. We've seen that. We saw it in game one. He wasn't doing that. Game two. I've talked a bit about his mentality a bit already, but I think that deserves a different video. I do trust Skinner still. I don't know how much I trust him and how much I can trust his consistency, but I do trust his capability. If Skinner does underperform, we've won with an underperforming Skinner before. We did last year. So I think we'll be fine. I say we as an Oilers fan, but of course the Kings can win this. If you're a Kings fan, I'm not going to say lose all hope now. I feel like from the Kings fans that I interact with, I have more hope for the Kings than they do. They just want it to be over with, but I'm like, anything can happen, and especially when you play a team as much as we do. But in both of those games, the Oilers did, outside of goal scoring, outperform the Kings, and even in terms of goal scoring, the game one win by the Oilers was domination, and the Kings win was more, I don't want to say lucky. I don't like using that word unless it's complimentary, and I don't think it'd be a complimentary term or complimentary use in this situation. I don't want to say the Kings just got lucky. No, they played well. But they were opportunistic, a lot more than the Oilers were, for that matter. So my feelings are still in favor of the Oilers winning. I do still expect them to win this series, and I think most people do. But I would be surprised and very disappointed at a Kings win. But I understand that it is still a possibility. And that's me kind of trying to temper expectations because I don't need anything trying to bite me in the butt. And because I am a realistic. But anyways, that's it for this kind of playoff pulse. Checking in on each series, seeing what the feelings are. Didn't want to be too stat heavy this time, and maybe I will if you'd like to see more stats. I will do that in my next playoff pulse check, which will probably be when each series is either finished or hitting around Game 6, right before Game 7, if Game 7 is needed. And if it is a series review, that will be more statistical. And if you like all that kind of stuff, or you like the white noise that I provide, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. It'd be a huge help if you liked the video, and I fully appreciate you just viewing it at all. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below about me and the channel, or the playoffs, how you're feeling, whatever. Thank you again so much. Have a great rest of your day, night, wherever you're at, and I will see you, hopefully, when I see you next.